The judge expected silence, but instead a child stood up and spoke words that froze the entire courtroom. In one shocking moment, Erika Kirk's daughter chose to walk away from her mother, exposing a truth that confirmed months of neglect no one could deny. The judge expected silence, but instead a child stood up and spoke words that froze the entire courtroom. In one shocking moment, Erika Kirk's daughter chose to walk away from her mother, exposing a truth that confirmed months of neglect no one could deny. What was supposed to be a routine custody hearing instantly turned into something far darker, something no one in that room would forget. Erika Kirk had walked into the courthouse that morning believing she was still in control. She wore confidence like armor, telling herself that no matter what accusations were thrown around, she was still the mother. And mothers, she believed, always won in the end. She had repeated her story so many times that it felt real even to her. She said she was overwhelmed, misunderstood, judged too harshly. She said she loved her daughter more than anything. But love, when not backed by action, leaves traces of damage that are impossible to hide forever. The concerns had started quietly. Teachers noticed changes first. The little girl came to school tired, distracted, and withdrawn. Some days she wore clothes that hadn't been washed. Other days she complained of headaches, stomach pain, anything that might allow her to stay longer at school. When teachers asked about home, her answers were short and careful, as if every word carried risk. Eventually, the school had no choice but to report what they were seeing. When social services contacted Erika, she reacted with anger. She accused the system of targeting her, of assuming she was a bad mother because she was struggling. She said her daughter was sensitive, dramatic, difficult. She claimed the girl exaggerated stories when she didn't get her way. To outsiders, Erika sounded convincing. She cried at the right moments. She spoke about stress, finances, exhaustion. But behind closed doors, a different pattern emerged. Neighbors described seeing the child alone late in the evening, sitting on the steps, waiting. Some mentioned hearing Erika yelling inside the house while the child cried. Others said the girl would knock on doors asking for food or water, always polite, always apologetic. None of these incidents alone seemed severe enough to force immediate action, but together they formed a picture that couldn't be ignored. Kirk's parents had noticed too. They were careful not to push too hard, afraid Erika would cut them off completely. They offered help, babysitting, overnight stays. Sometimes Erika accepted, usually when she needed a break. Other times she refused, accusing them of interfering, of trying to turn her daughter against her. The truth was, the child felt different at her grandparents' house. She felt calm. She slept. She ate. She was asked questions and allowed to answer without being interrupted. By the time the case reached court, the child had been interviewed multiple times by professionals trained to recognize fear disguised as politeness. Each time, she said just enough to be honest without getting herself in trouble. She had learned early that saying too much had consequences. Silence, she believed, was safer. The courtroom itself was overwhelming. Tall ceilings, cold benches, strangers watching every move. Erika sat stiffly beside her attorney, arms crossed, jaw tight. Across the room, Kirk's parents sat quietly, hands folded, not making eye contact with Erika. Between them sat the child, smaller than everyone else, feet dangling above the floor, holding onto the arm of her advocate like it was the only solid thing in the room. Testimony began with school officials. They spoke calmly, professionally, listing missed assignments, frequent absences, signs of chronic fatigue. Then the social worker described home visits that felt tense, unwelcoming, and emotionally cold. Erika interrupted several times, shaking her head, whispering to her lawyer. When it was her turn to speak, she painted herself as a victim of exaggeration and bias. She said she worked hard. She said parenting wasn't perfect. She said her daughter loved her. The judge listened carefully. Then came the moment no one expected. The judge, following standard procedure, asked if the child wanted to express a preference about where she lived. Erika barely reacted. She assumed her daughter would say nothing or mumble something unclear. The girl had always been quiet. Always careful. But this time, something had changed. The child raised her hand. A ripple of surprise moved through the courtroom. The judge nodded gently, giving permission. The girl stood slowly, her hands shaking at her sides. At first, her voice trembled. She said she was scared. She said she didn't want to make anyone angry. But she also said she was tired of being quiet. She talked about coming home to an empty house. About making cereal for dinner. About waiting for her mother and falling asleep on the couch. She talked about being afraid to ask for help, because it led to yelling. She said she felt invisible. Not hit. Not bruised. Just forgotten. Erika whispered no under her breath, tears forming, shaking her head as if denial could undo what was being said. Then the judge asked the question that would change everything. Where did she feel safe? The child didn't look at her mother. She turned slowly toward her grandparents. Her voice steadied as she spoke their names. She said when she stayed with them, they noticed when she was sad. They made dinner together. They asked about school. She said she didn't feel scared there. She said she felt like she mattered. The courtroom went silent. Erika stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly. She accused everyone of manipulation. She said her daughter was being coached, poisoned against her. The judge ordered her to sit down. As Erika raised her voice, the child flinched, instinctively stepping back. That single movement said more than any testimony ever could. Kirk's parents didn't speak. They didn't smile. Tears streamed down the grandmother's face, as she nodded gently, silently promising protection. They hadn't wanted this moment, but they were ready for it. The judge called for a short recess. Lawyers whispered urgently. Social workers exchanged looks. The child's words had shifted the entire case. This was no longer about misunderstandings or parenting styles. This was about neglect that had gone on long enough to force a child to speak in a room full of adults. When court resumed, the judge spoke carefully, emphasizing the child's well-being above all else. Temporary custody would be granted to Kirk's parents pending further investigation. Erika's face was drained of color. Temporary sounded harmless, but everyone knew what it meant. As the child walked out of the courtroom holding her grandmother's hand, she didn't look back. Not out of anger, but out of relief. For the first time, she had been heard. And what came next would reveal even more: messages, records, and overlooked warnings that would confirm her words were only the beginning. The days following the court's decision felt heavier than anyone expected. Temporary custody sounded neutral on paper, but for Erika Kirk, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. For the first time, she wasn't the one controlling the narrative. The court ordered evaluations, interviews, and home inspections, and suddenly every excuse she had relied on was being tested against evidence. Kirk's parents brought the child home that evening with quiet care. There was no celebration, no sense of victory. They understood that what had happened wasn't a win, it was a rescue. The girl moved cautiously through their house, unsure at first if this calm was permanent, or just another temporary pause before chaos returned. Her grandmother showed her the room they had prepared: soft blankets, a small lamp, clean clothes folded neatly. The child nodded politely, but when the door closed, she sat on the bed and cried. Not because she was sad to be there, but because she finally felt safe enough to let go. Social workers visited Erika's home again. This time, without a child present, the house felt different. Cold. Disorganized. Unprepared for a child to live there full-time. There was food in the fridge, but mostly expired. The girl's room looked untouched, as if no one had slept there in weeks. When asked about routines, Erika struggled to give clear answers. Bedtimes changed. Meals weren't consistent. School responsibilities were often forgotten. Still, Erika insisted she was being treated unfairly. She posted vague messages online about betrayal and injustice, painting herself as a mother fighting a broken system. Some people believed her. They always do. But the court doesn't run on sympathy, it runs on consistency. And consistency was something Erika couldn't provide. At Kirk's parents' home, the change in the child was impossible to ignore. She started sleeping through the night. Her teachers reported improved focus, brighter mood, fewer absences. She laughed more. She asked questions. Simple things, like asking for seconds at dinner, felt like milestones. The grandparents didn't push her to talk about her mother. They let her lead. And slowly, she did. One evening, sitting at the kitchen table, the child asked a question that broke her grandfather's heart. She asked if it was okay to ask for help. The room went silent. He told her gently that it was always okay. She nodded, processing the idea like it was something entirely new. Back in court, Erika's behavior grew more erratic. She missed appointments. She arrived late to supervised visits. During those visits, she oscillated between excessive affection and visible frustration when her daughter didn't respond the way she wanted. Caseworkers noted how the child became tense around her mother, her body stiff, her voice quiet again. After visits, she often complained of headaches and stomach aches. The contrast was undeniable. Kirk's parents never spoke badly about Erika in front of the child. They knew this wasn't about replacing a mother, but about protecting a child. They encouraged supervised contact, hoping Erika might change. But change requires accountability, and accountability was something Erika continued to avoid. As more records were reviewed, missed medical appointments came to light. Dental visits that never happened. Parent-teacher meetings skipped without explanation. Each omission added weight to the case. Neglect, the court acknowledged, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the steady absence of care. During a follow-up hearing, the judge reviewed updated reports. The child was asked again how she was doing. This time, she didn't hesitate. She said she felt happier. Safer. She said she liked knowing what to expect each day. She said she wasn't scared to fall asleep anymore. Erika sat silently, her earlier confidence completely gone. When given a chance to speak, she repeated familiar lines: stress, pressure, misunderstanding. But the room no longer leaned toward her words. Too much evidence now supported the same conclusion. The judge extended the custody arrangement. Outside the courthouse, Erika broke down, crying into her hands, insisting she was losing everything. But inside, professionals recognized a different truth. She hadn't lost her daughter that day. She had been losing her slowly for years. For the child, life settled into something steady. Not perfect, but predictable. She joined a school club. She invited a friend over for the first time. Small things that spoke volumes. Yet, there were moments of guilt. Moments when she wondered if she had done something wrong by speaking up. Her grandmother reassured her gently, reminding her that telling the truth was never wrong. As the final custody decision approached, the question wasn't just where the child should live, but whether Erika could acknowledge the harm caused. Therapy was offered. Parenting classes recommended. The door wasn't fully closed, but it required effort to reopen. Erika stood at a crossroads she didn't want to admit existed. And the court prepared to make a decision that would change the child's future permanently. What happened next would remove any remaining doubt about where that future belonged. By the time the final hearing arrived, the courtroom felt different. There was no tension in the air, no dramatic anticipation. Instead, there was a quiet understanding among everyone present that the outcome was already clear. The months between hearings had done what arguments never could. They had revealed the truth through consistency. Erika Kirk arrived early that day, sitting alone. She looked exhausted, thinner somehow, her confidence replaced with something closer to fear. The fight had drained her, but more than that, the silence had. The silence of a house without her child. The silence of unanswered messages. The silence of realizing that love, when left unattended, fades into distance. Kirk's parents entered together, their posture calm but protective. The child walked between them, holding her grandmother's hand, no longer staring at the floor. She looked around the room with curiosity rather than fear. That alone spoke volumes. The judge reviewed the final reports carefully. Psychological evaluations confirmed what had already been suspected. Long-term emotional neglect had impacted the child's sense of security and self-worth. Educational reports showed dramatic improvement since the change in custody. Medical records were now up to date. Every area of the child's life showed stability and progress. When the judge asked the child if she wished to speak again, she nodded. This time, her voice didn't shake. She said she still loved her mother. That part surprised no one who understood children. She said love doesn't disappear just because someone hurts you. But she also said she didn't feel safe going back. She said she didn't want to feel invisible anymore. She wanted to live where people noticed when she was sad and cared enough to ask why. Erika listened in silence. For the first time, she didn't interrupt. Tears ran freely down her face, not from anger, but from realization. There was no one left to blame. No story left to tell. Her attorney spoke briefly, suggesting reunification plans, gradual steps. The judge acknowledged the possibility, but made one thing clear: the child's safety and emotional health came first, and they could not be compromised by hope alone. The ruling was delivered without drama. Full custody was granted to Kirk's parents. Erika was allowed supervised visitation, contingent on therapy and completion of parenting programs. The door was not locked, but it was no longer wide open. It would take effort, humility, and time to even approach it again. The sound of the gavel echoed softly, and just like that, the case was over. Erika sat frozen. Losing custody didn't feel real until she watched her daughter stand up, walk over to her grandparents, and take their hands. There was no anger in the child's eyes. Just acceptance. That hurt more than any accusation ever could. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Erika avoided them this time. There was nothing left to say. No explanation that could undo what had already been confirmed. Neglect doesn't always look like cruelty, but its consequences are just as lasting. Life after the ruling wasn't magically perfect. The child still had moments of sadness, moments of confusion. Healing doesn't happen overnight. But the difference was, now she wasn't healing alone. When nightmares came, someone sat with her. When school felt hard, someone helped. When she had questions, they were answered patiently, not dismissed. Kirk's parents never tried to replace Erika. They understood their role wasn't to erase a mother, but to provide what had been missing. Stability. Attention. Presence. Slowly, the child began to believe that she deserved those things. Erika began therapy weeks later. Not because the court ordered it, but in choosing to live with her grandparents, the child didn't betray her mother. She saved herself. And in that courtroom, on a day meant for adults to decide her future, she proved that even the quietest voices can change everything. If this shocking and emotional story moved you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more real-life courtroom stories every day. Erika Kirk's daughter showed incredible courage, and her choice wasn't just personal. It's a powerful example of a child standing up for her right to be heard and safe. Every child deserves to feel that their feelings and well-being come first, and sometimes, it takes extraordinary bravery to protect themselves. We want to hear from you. Do you think the child made the right decision? How important do you think the role of grandparents and family support is in a child's life? Every comment, share, and like helps raise awareness and reminds everyone that neglect isn't always visible, but its impact is deep and lasting. So don't wait. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice can make a difference and help highlight the importance of protecting children's safety and emotional well-being.